Oh, beautiful. Welcome to the Perimenopause and Intimate Wellness Podcast. This is the place where we talk about things that nobody else is talking about, but it's something that every woman is experiencing. Hi, and I'm Amy Woods, and 8 years ago, I was actually homeless. But today, I am the CEO of multiple businesses, including Saluna for Women. And I've made it my mission to empower women to reclaim their bodies, their confidence, and live their lives no matter what season they're in. This podcast, it's not just about information. It's about this beautiful transformation that you're going through. It's about real conversations, real stories, and real solutions for the changes your body is going through right now. And here's the thing, you don't have to go through this alone. You can, but you don't have to. So when you subscribe to this podcast, you're not just hitting a button. You're joining a community of women who are also choosing themselves every single day. Women who are done staying silent about perimenopause, intimate wellness, and everything in between with it. Women who are ready to feel empowered and supported and seen. Subscribing is free. It takes 2 seconds and it helps us build this community together. Every time you subscribe, you're telling other women, hey, you're not alone in this. And you're not going crazy. Everything you're experiencing is real. Okay? So you're helping us actually reach more women who need to hear these conversations. You're becoming a part of something life changing for you and for them. So, if you're ready to stop feeling stuck, confused, and like your body has taken on a life of its own and is betraying you, if you're ready to step into this next chapter with clarity and confidence and a whole lot of support, hit that subscribe button right now because you deserve to feel like you again. And we're going to figure this out together. So, let's go dive in. Getting to the moment of intimacy, with vaginal dryness. And we're going to step into that a little bit later into this episode. But I have a lot of notes here today because I wanted to get this right. I have a lot of stats. I did a lot of research on this topic about how it can hurt your health and, how and I wanted to be precise about in what ways it can hurt your health and how it can actually improve your health. When you are in an intimate relationship or you are making sure that intimacy is still a part of your relationship. So we all know that during perimenopause and menopause, our body changing goes through a lot, and the transformation causes a lot, and we have to navigate that. And in a lot of the episodes that I'll be doing and the experts that I'll be having on, we're going to talk about all those things. But before we dive into the specifics about, the health changes that the lack of intimacy can cause and the improvements in your health that it can create, I want to connect this for you a little bit. So, there's been studies done about when you give a hug to somebody or when you're holding hands with somebody, like even your girlfriends, men, when you're hugging your buddies, if there's men listening to this, which I hope there are, because this will help you understand a little bit about where your ladies are at in their journey. When you hug somebody, they say hold on for 30 seconds because it's been medically proven to lower your blood pressure in that 30 seconds. Not a whole lot. It's not going to bottom it out, but you calm down. It regulates your nervous system, so you calm down. It also, lowers your cortisol It lowers your stress, anxiety, and it creates a dopamine effect that lifts you into a better mindset state if you suffer with depression. So there's actually confirmation there, just in not, with your parents, with your friends, with your kids, that intimate touch and hugs and hand holding and connection person to person has health benefits. So, what actually is happening to our body if we are going without intimacy within our relationship? And let's just call it what it is. We're not having skin to skin moments and lack of sex. Okay. Have you ever heard of that? Maybe you've heard this saying, love covers a multitude of sins. Well, the truth is when you are actually intimate, stupid stuff don't bother you as much. And flaws in somebody else don't bother you as much because you have a connection, mind to mind, soul to soul, energy to energy. You have a connection there with that other person. But when we get into perimenopause and menopause, not just the females, but males are starting to get into their body changes. They're going through a lack of libido and maybe they're experiencing ED, and men are real stubborn about talking about this, but I think women are too. Okay. We've been trained in society that it is actually normal for women to not to want to be intimate and have sex with our partner. And that's just not true. The fact that you don't want to means there's an issue going on because by nature, we are intimate creatures. Women are. We connect deeply through intimate connections. We pour our hearts and our feelings into it, and that's how we show love and we nurture and we open ourselves up to receive in ways that we normally don't outside of that aspect because we are so busy outside of that aspect nurturing everybody else and making sure everybody else is took care of. So the fact that, oh, I just don't want to and I don't care about it anymore, no, sorry, that's just not a real thing. And if that's what you keep saying, it's because you're trying to convince yourself of that, to be honest with you. And I really want to open this up for discussion. So put in the comments where you're at in your journey with that. It's okay. There's nothing shameful about it. If you have a hard time getting yourself to want to be with your partner or be in the mood, it's okay. Stress can cause it, lack of sleep can cause it, emotional issues can cause it, trauma can cause that. There's so many different aspects. But today I want to talk about it in terms of perimenopause and menopause, or even, well, obviously postmenopause, because menopause is a day long, you guys. I don't know if you knew that. It's the first day a year after you've stopped having your menstruation. So, menopause really isn't a stage necessarily. It's you're either perimenopause or postmenopause. And that one day where it's flipped is menopause. It makes no sense to me, but okay. So, women in perimenopause and postmenopause, we go through a lot of body changes, and it doesn't stop just because you go into postmenopause. We have to fight a little harder to stay healthy in postmenopause. But perimenopause, that's when your estrogens drop and your progesterone, your hormones are no longer cyclical. They're everywhere, right? So some days you're going to be extremely in the mood, and then there's going to be other times where it's just so dry and painful, you don't want nothing to do with it. And by the way, click the link for Saluna.com, SalunaForWomen.com, because that's going to help you. I mean, you might get estrogen cream, testosterone cream, but the Saluna for women lubrication, it's for during sex and it's for everyday use to help heal dryness, atrophy, regulate your pH balance. And we're going to get into some of that on how that causes, some other health issues because it does. But when you're going through that vaginal dryness and atrophy and your tissue starting to thin and your pH balance is off, it can be extremely painful to have intercourse. So it's no wonder why it's hard for us to want to be intimate. But what if we look at intimacy as not having an end game? And men, you have to look at it that way and help your women feel satisfied and that you're just being together, okay? Because it's not always going to happen on your part, and it's not always going to be happening on her part. It's just that connection. In what ways can you better connect on an intimate level that doesn't have to reach climax or the big O? Because that's going to be super important through this phase because there's so many different things. It can be massage, it can be just touch, petting, laying together. A lot of times it might turn into something else. And if so, that's great. But you're taking your time and you're removing the pressure off. Okay. Because sometimes it's just not going to happen. Sometimes your mind is into it, but your body isn't. And then there's going to be times where your body is and your mind's not into it. Maybe you have a headache, or maybe you're stressed out. Maybe it's a high anxiety day. Maybe you didn't sleep well the night before. Maybe you've had insomnia all week. So be patient with yourself and get creative with what intimacy can look like during this phase. Don't be afraid to, supplement with fun toys also, because that can be a very good enhancement into your relationship. Guys, don't get jealous. It's not that. It's about helping a woman's body respond. And once it's responding, it's going to respond to you. So don't be ashamed of that. Okay. So moving on, I want to give you some statistics, and one is really powerful. Up to 87% of postmenopausal women 87%, you guys, experience vaginal dryness, pain during sex, and urinary issues. Okay, and this is something we are not talking about. So, what urinary issues can happen? Well, when your pH balance becomes off because your tissue's getting dry and thin, it makes it a breeding. We're very acidic down there, and that's what keeps us healthy. So, when you're drying, your acid's coming up. So, there's no moisture being produced to keep that tissue healthy. So when you become, neutral, there's no reason for your body to produce moisture. And that's when bacteria and yeast and all sorts of things can happen. And then when the tissue's thinning out, it just makes it a lot easier for that bacteria to enter into the bladder and then go up into your urinary tract. And that's when we get urinary tract infections. I never experienced bladder infections before until I started going through perimenopause. And then I ended up 1 year with about 3 of them within 1 year. And I've never had a UTI until I started into perimenopause. And all of a sudden I had a UTI. So, the moisture level down there really does affect. And if you're having infections and having yeast, it's just going to break down that tissue even more. And you have bacteria inside your body, and that's not healthy. We don't think about those kind of things when we're going through this, but think about, they say keep your mouth healthy because it's a bacteria breeding ground. And, if our mouth is always dry, if you have dry mouth syndrome, you actually get more cavities from that because your bacteria stays in there and because the pH is off in there. And then once you breed cavities, you're actually affecting your heart because everything you eat attaches, to that bacteria. This is the same concept. If your pH isn't right and it's dry, bacteria is hanging out in there just waiting for an entry point. So that's why it's really important to understand all of this. I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses are on my head. Isn't that funny? During a perimenopause show, I can't find my glasses and they're on my head. Okay, so studies also show a 30% increase in sexual dysfunction scores during perimenopause, with vaginal dryness as the culprit. Okay, the lower estrogen and testosterone levels cause these physical changes. It reduces your sex drive because you're in pain. I mean, of course, you're not going to want to have sex if you're in pain. This also takes an emotional toll. So, we're going to cover cardiovascular risks, mental health issues, immune compromise. And there's studies done on this, and I will be sure to study it. The GSM effects. Genitourinary syndrome. Okay, we're going to talk about that. And it affects your longevity and your overall health. So, regular intimacy actually boosts your immune system. So it's really important that we discuss this because I don't think it's really being talked about as far as that stuff goes. Let me find where I was. Okay. Okay, so I want to get into the cardiovascular health risks with this. Like I said, I created a full document about this because I didn't want to miss anything and I didn't want to misquote anything, and I wanted to make sure I had my knowledge points accurate. So according to Science Directive 2025, in healthy postmenopausal women aged 45 to 60, regular sexual activity positively influence cardiac autonomic functions, which means your heart regulation or your heart rate variability. So you want your heart rate variability. Let's explain that. Your heart rate variability is after you exercise or go through a stressful event and your heart rate goes way up. How fast does it return to an automatic normal is the measurement that you're measuring there. If it stays elevated, that means your body's having a harder time recovering from a systemic stress. The quicker it can lower back down to a resting heart rate means your body's autonomic system is in good check, okay? And that's really important to understand because you're going to experience, through perimenopause, we experience heart palpitations and our vaso system is affected, and that's why we get into hot flashes, which just means that, our blood vessels are swelling and we get more fluid on us and our lymphatic system is affected, and, then our heart rate goes up and we end up into a hot flash. So the menopause transition, perimenopause, actually increases coronary heart disease risk, and the lack of intimacy actually compounds this because when you're stressed, you create cortisol, which builds plaque in your arteries. And with cortisol, you also take on visceral fat. Visceral fat is not good, especially in the pooch here, in the tummy. And I say we have two pooches. We have the upper pooch and we have the vajayjay pooch. So the visceral fat there is not, that's cortisol related. It's not 100% caused by cortisol. Don't get me wrong there. It's influenced by diet, lack of exercise. And when you're having sex and you're intimate, your cortisol lowers, which means you're going to put less on. Your cortisol influences your insulin, your cortisol influences your adrenaline, your cortisol influences a lot. And your body produces that to create that heart rate variability. When you're in flight or fight, it produces a bunch of cortisol because then you're going to produce a bunch of adrenaline so you can get the hell out of there and away from the lion. So when your heart rate variability won't calm back down fast enough, you're still in that state, and it's compiling, and that causes plaque in your arteries. So that's where the coronary heart disease is played. The lack of intimacy compounds that because, like we were just talking about, when you're hand to hand or hugging or touching and, human contact, it lowers your blood pressure, it lowers the cortisol, it lowers anxiety, which produces adrenaline, which means your heart's functioning how it should. So regular sexual activity is linked with improved circulation, decreased anxiety, stress reduction, and reduced blood pressure, like we just talked about. There's also a lot of mental health consequences to the lack of intimacy. I mean, if we don't feel wanted and we don't feel attractive to, like our partners find us attractive, we're going to have an emotional mental response to that. We have, a lack of confidence because of it. We feel intimidated or self-conscious around other beautiful women. The chronic stress that can come from trying to initiate or not initiate, and from the lack of intimacy, elevates cortisol because you're stressed out, which just automatically decreases your sexual desire, which creates that loop. It's a negative feedback loop all the time. Women with severe anxiety and depression exhibit heightened cortisol response, which worsens your mental health symptoms, okay? Because it makes you fatigued, it makes you more anxious, it makes you, not as social. You want to hibernate a little bit more. Depression will then reduce, from, being isolated and not making those connections, will reduce your serotonin and dopamine, which is your feel-good hormones, which further lowers your libido. And that creates a cycle of emotional and physical disconnection. So when intimacy actually disappears, your stress hormones take over. And that affects everything from your mood to your motivation to your endurance to your, satisfaction of life, just overall satisfaction of life. So how does this affect our immune system? According to Longevity Direct, sexual activity increases levels of immunoglobulin A, which is an antibody crucial for fighting infections. Regular intimacy actually boosts your immune functions through multiple mechanisms, helping to protect you against illness. And the lack of intimacy means that you're missing out on a natural immune boosting benefit that your body actually needs, especially during perimenopause. When, have you noticed that autoimmune disease shows up in women's 30s and 40s, and women are most affected by it? And I personally believe, this has not been studied, but I personally believe it's due to perimenopause because it lowers your immune system and then your body starts attacking itself. It challenges your body's way of how it defends against foreign, material inside there. So even allergies to gluten or dairy or sugar or can all of a sudden start happening, or you become hypersensitive, that kind of thing. A lot of women find they have mast cell activation syndrome during this phase, and it all of a sudden goes away, or eczema, and then once you're through it, and everything levels out, your eczema disappears. So there's a lot at play when it comes to your immune system. And when you have more confidence, it's been shown that when you have more confidence and you're more outgoing, the higher your immunity is and the better your immune system responds without over responding or under responding. Okay, so here's that word again: genitourinary health complications. Genitourinary syndrome. Okay, there we go. I think I got it. The genitourinary syndrome of menopause actually affects up to 87% of postmenopausal women. What this includes, this is just a fancy word for vaginal dryness, pain during sex, urinary urgency, that cough, sneeze, laugh, pee, and frequency of UTIs. So the initials are GSM, and you might hear other experts speak on this a lot. Vaginal atrophy actually affects up to 45% of postmenopausal women and is associated with chronic vaginal dryness and recurrent urinary tract infections and painful intercourse. These complications actually worsen without regular sexual activity or treatment, leading to a chronic discomfort and increased risk of infection. Now, we talked about the pH balance down in there. So when all of this is happening, you're not keeping the mucosa, plump and juicy is the best word I know. Okay, let's think about your nose. When your nose gets dried out, what happens? If you go to blow it, sometimes you'll have a bloody nose. That's because the tissue up in there is getting thin and it's atrophying. When it's not as pliable, okay, so it thins out. Then, that causes tears, and then that causes scar tissue, and then pretty soon, before you know it, the tissue in there is not moving how it should. So, when people have been in a hospital for a long time after an accident, God forbid, when they've been in and out of consciousness or highly doped up, it only takes a couple days for their muscles to start atrophying, and it's pulling back. It's like you see their muscles start doing this. That's their ligaments and tendons tightening up, and they're not moving properly, and it's very painful to try to help them get back to normal. Same situation down there. You have moving tissue down there, and when it starts to atrophy, pretty soon everything starts to draw up, and it actually makes it harder to reach climax. It makes it easier for bacteria to enter the urinary tract, and it makes it very painful during intercourse. That's why it is super important to get treated for dryness before you actually get to that point. Okay, super important. You can do that by grabbing Saluna for Women. It's an all-natural product, and it helps stop this ahead of time. And you can use it for during sex as a lubrication, and every day for treating vaginal dryness and keeping your pH balance where it needs to be. So go ahead and grab you some. Let's see. Avoiding intimacy due to discomfort actually makes the physical problems even worse, because you're not having sex, you're not putting moisture in there, and you're not moving the tissue, you're not moving the muscles, you're not, that atrophy again. The longevity and overall health of you. It's sexual activity is associated with lower all-cause mortality rates, and including reduced risk of stroke in older women. And that's been founded from the foundational concepts. Regular intimacy helps maintain healthy hormones. levels, because you're reducing that stress and anxiety, and which, if you maintain your hormone levels a little bit better, you're reducing the heart disease risk. Benefits also include a better self-esteem. Don't you just feel better when you're connected to people? You have a decrease of anxiety and depression. You improve your sleep. There's pain relief involved from the oxytocin release that happens, and you have better digestion. So this is really important. And I had a doctor tell me once too, it helps with ovarian cysts. It helps decrease your ovarian cysts. It helps rupture them, all sorts of things, because you're moving everything in there. So how do we break this cycle? It's not so much about willpower, okay? It would be great if it was, because I know a lot of us have a lot of willpower, but nothing's happening, right? When we're just trying harder, it actually makes it not just more inconvenient, but not as desirable to want to be intimate. It's more about understanding your biological and emotional changes that you're going through right now. And like I talked about at the beginning of this, be willing to explore different ways to connect, okay? Not just the end game. Many women feel embarrassed about this and don't want to talk to you about it. And men want to help fix the problem, but they don't know and they don't understand it. So communication is going to be really key here. This is a medical issue. So talk to your doctor, even talk to your friends, find out who else is going through it. What are they doing? I would say talk to your mom, maybe get her to open it up. They've never had a place to open up about this either. But it's a medical issue, that affects the majority of women going through perimenopause. The first step is, admitting and recognizing that the lack of intimacy is real and there's measurable health consequences to it. So what are some solutions? Saluna for women would be one of them. It's an all-natural product, you guys. There's no parabens, no preservatives. It's got a short shelf life because of that. But if you're using it every day as moisture and as lubricant, then you're going to go through it. So there's medical interventions like vaginal estrogen. There's hormone therapy. Of course, consult your doctor about those. Stress management for lifestyle approaches. Open up your communication with your partner. Very important. Talked about it before, and I'm going to keep stressing this. Redefine what intimacy is to you and to your partner as, in a way that you both can reach a level of satisfaction with it. Get professional support too. There's no shame in it. Talk to menopause specialists, certified menopause specialists, so you don't get gaslit. Talk to sex therapists who have experience with people in this age range. There's all sorts of solutions out there. I just want you to do your research for it. I want you to take the time to make this matter. And I want you to know you're not alone in this. This is a very complicated time in a woman's life. And we're going through so much. And I know men, sometimes it's like, oh, she's saying it's this. Oh, she's saying it's that. She's depressed. She sleeps all the time. She's in pain. She's got a headache. Whatever it is that we're complaining about. I want you, if you're a man watching this, to study up on the effects of what perimenopause and menopause has on a woman's body, because the hormone changes we're going through affects every single part of our body, from our stomach to our immune system, to our, having headaches, to our eyesight, to our joints, to our digestive system, to our vagina. Our vagina is not, off limits there. It's not separate, so it affects a lot. It can even affect your breathing. You can suddenly be short of breath. It can affect your heart, your blood pressure. There's so many different things that it affects because estrogen is the main component on how our body functions. So talk to doctors, talk to specialists, find out, research, do your homework. And for a natural solution, again, go to saluna.forwomen.com. Find out a little bit more about what it is, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Talk to you soon. Bye.